Hello there. Hi. Welcome to another video. So this one's a little not different, but a little different. This is I could do it in an answer voice, my top 10 John Carpenter films ever. But that's not really me. What this is a list of my 10 favourite John Carpenter films, ostensibly. Why him, you say? So we'll get to that shortly, but I just thought this is because obviously I'm going to the love of horror. I thought this could be an interesting little list to put up so you could all scream at me about how wrong I am. Because that is going to happen, I would assume. So before we start, my opinion. I've ranked these on favourite, impact, my feelings when I first saw them, stuff like that. So it's not, I would say, a definitive list. Also, what I might do is, if you want to find these, I will try to tell you if they're available or if you can find them. I'm going to do it from the UK basis. They may be different in your countries. I do know in the case of one of them, there is a release. I may mention that. So let's start with number 10. Actually, what we'll do, who is John Carpenter? So he is a film director, has mostly done what mostly people would call genre films, sci-fi, horror, stuff like that. First film he ever made was, or how he got notoriety extensively, was his first student film called Dark Star, which I will point out is not on this list. Please shout at me if you want. Was expanded out to a full film with a theatrical release. Now, if you've never seen that film, it does have a beach ball monster in it, because obviously there wasn't any budget, but that was where it started. He then got to do some other films, and then he hit his so what's the second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, never like that one, 6, 7, 8. There's like an 8 run of really good genre films. Then he did a couple of others near the end, and he's kind of tailed off. He has done films recently. The last one was 2010, but that doesn't matter. So firstly, number 10 is, and this light's going to not show this, but this one here, Christine. So what is that, you ask? It is an adaptation of a Stephen King novel, which, weirdly enough, I read before I saw the film. Because saw it on VHS because I am ancient, but I read the book first, so I was just interested to see what he'd do with it, because by this point I knew who John Carpenter was. And if you've never seen it, it is obviously, as you've seen by the fact I held it up, it is available on Blu-ray and DVD. You can find it fairly cheaply on DVD. It's also streaming. I'm not too certain where, because by the time some people may see this, but I would just say you can find the Blu-ray on Amazon and various shops for reasonable amounts of money, let's say. So it's not too difficult, but it is ostensibly the tale of a nerd who is at the start of the film called Archie. This is me pulling it from memory. And he falls in love with this car is called Christine, and it has a dark past. I will leave it there. I'm not giving anything away. You may be seeing pictures of the film, from the film, while I'm, talking about it. But it's his later work. Actually, it was his first film post The Thing, which, as any fan of John Carpenter knows, was The Thing was his peak because it was his first studio picture, and I will discuss when I get to The Thing kind of the aftermath of that. But he was kind of not on a downward slide, let's say, in a kind of creative, but career-wise, people thought he was done, but he still did pretty good movies after Christine. So I would recommend watching it as bad as blank as you can. It's pretty good. The acting in it is really good. If I remember correctly, Good Bad Films did a thingy exploring on it. I would recommend, if you've seen the film, watching that, because there is some good stuff in there about John Carpenter at that time. So we've done number 10, so we'll get to number 9. Some people might be a bit surprised by this one, but it is this one, Prince of Darkness, which is how can I put this? It's so this one was in his later period. So this was done in '87, because he had like a deal. So this one and They Live were done with Universal. I think Universal and Carlico. Not too memorising. So this was kind of when it was not on the way down, but that is a good film. It's his attempt, because as he said, you will find in a lot of John Carpenter's films, let me just scratch that he likes to reference things. So in Prince of Darkness, he is referencing the works of Nigel Kneale, a very prominent British sci-fi writer, who did the Quatermass series. So Quatermass 2, Quatermass and the Piss, and the fourth one, which I'm not a fan of, but that's just me. It's very end of the worldy stuff. A lot of it was like, so the first three were two in the 50s, one was in the 60s. Quatermass and the Pit is actually pretty much up there as one of my favourite Hammer horror movies. But he wrote the scripts, and they were always very talking about things that were of the time, but they were kind of hidden in sci-fi. This is kind of before Star Trek tried to do the allegories and science fiction stuff. So, in Prince of Darkness, a priest approaches a physics teacher, because there's a lot of religion and science stuff in it, kind of not clashing, but sliding over one another, let's say. And he says that there's a secret in the bottom of a church he's been in, and he gathers a team of scientists together. They go and they discover something there. Again, not going into too much detail, but again, you all must probably seen pictures around me of the film. Again, try to go in as blind as possible. This, as you can see from there's a fairly recent restoration of this. You can get that on 4K Blu-ray, DVD. I couldn't find it on a streaming site over here. Your service may differ, let us say. So again, I would recommend that. I love that movie. It is, people have likened it to allegories for like AIDS, other stuff like that, diseases, body. It is kind of, I'm not going to say body horror, but there is stuff in there of that ilk. Number 8 is nothing, because there isn't a Blu-ray release over here. There is one in Germany. This is In the Mouth of Madness. Again, later on film he did for New Line in 1994. This is his homage to two things. One, prolific horror writers, because there are some fairly pointed Stephen King jokes in there, and H.P. Lovecraft. Anyone who knows me knows I love H.P. Lovecraft. I listen to some of the audiobooks multiple times, and that's his kind of reference point in that film. Again, I'll give a brief overview. So an insurance agent is asked to discover where a missing horror writer is, and the fans of that horror writer are fairly loyal, let's say almost cult-like, and things progress from there. It is very, considering the low budget of it, and it's got Sam Neill and Charlton Heston in it, you're like, okay. It's very, very good film. I love it deeply. I do watch it about once or twice a year still to this day, because it's so strange that there are ways you can watch it, but there are ways. But it is such a surreal movie because it's about bending of reality and stuff like that. I'm not going to give away much of that film. Again, pictures around me, but I would heartily recommend that one. So next we come to so number 6 is this Big Trouble in Little China. This is the Arrow one. Actually, I think I did replace the box on this. Again, as you can see, available on Blu-ray over here. Again, streaming, and I think it's also on Prime, and it's also on DVD if you want to try and find this film yourself. So this one is there is no way you can adequately describe this movie. It is like martial arts, fantasy, magic. It's basically insane, and Kurt Russell in it is fantastic, because he plays this trucker, Jack Burton. I always remember that name. And he is in the movie. He believes he is the hero of the movie, but he really isn't. He's just not very good, but he's massively overconfident. I think it's one of Kurt Russell's best performances because he's playing this overly confident guy who believes he is brilliant, and to be honest, everyone around him, even the female characters, are better at this shit than he is. It has a lot of influences. There are some references which I don't know whether this came out before 86, or it might have come out before Mortal Kombat, so you will see certain characters in there where you'll be like, there's a lot of martial arts and very kind of high wiry. It's very before things like the Matrix and stuff make that kind of shit popular. Again, didn't do well in the cinemas, but fairly awesome. And I said again, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I would just watch it. I'd just sit down with no idea what the hell is coming and watch the film. You'll be fairly surprised. Again, it's pretty good. So let's get to the kind of the top 5. Now this one is going to shock you because I was actually surprised I don't own this. It is available over here. It is, I think you can see it on streaming. There is a completely shitty remake of it, which I suggest you avoid like the plague. But this is Assault on Precinct 13. This was his second film. He has always said he based it on a Western. Now this plot isn't massively complicated. What effectively happens is some gang members are killed in a police precinct. A starting police officer on the first day is sent there to see it's closed down, and the gang members all join together to try to kill the people inside the police station. So it's like a siege movie, A Night of the Living Dead. He based it on, I think it was Rio Bravo. I am most probably wrong, but he based it on a Howard Hawks Western. As you may know, he loved Howard Hawks, which is why he wanted to do the thing. There are the reason why this is quite high up is this is actually, without me knowing at the time, the first John Carpenter movie I saw on VHS. It was actually, very famously, my family, I think I've said this previously, had a very lax concept of video ratings, so they would just get stuff out. So the first 3 VHSs they ever rented was Monty Python and the Holy Grail, this movie, and an anime. So look around you. And there's a sequence in that movie I think is an absolute classic, and I don't think it gets enough, which I am going to just kind of vaguely say it. So there's a sequence where they are defending themselves from the gang, and there's gunshots and window smashes and stuff like that. And if you know anything of John Carpenter, his music is pretty damn good. And I've always said to people, to me, the gunshots and the music line up absolutely perfectly. It's like he was editing it to make that happen. It's an absolutely brilliant sequence, and again, it's a low-budget movie, so we're not going to be expecting blood arcing everyone, people flipping out of back windows. It wasn't the style at the time, but it's very gritty. There's a sequence in it that still is controversial today, and he says he regrets. There may be a picture of the before bit, but I won't say what it is, but you'll know it when you see it. Again, that was fairly early on in his career. He always said he was still dealing with working as a director in low budget filmmaking, but it was his second film, and it kind of didn't completely make his name, but it certainly helped. Okay, so next one is Escape from New York. Another Stone Cold classic in 1981, just in case. This is obviously Blu-ray, DVD. For any of these with these types of covers, there's most probably a 4K variant of, which if you want to get that, I don't have a 4K player, but so possibly one of the most classic characters he created. You will still see people dressed as this guy now. Snake Plissken, he's called. Effectively, he's a criminal. He's sent to, it's in 1992, which, was it 92 or 97? I can't remember. But basically, the world's gone to shit, and New York is now a massive prison. The president has gone down in there, in a way I won't explain, and he is sent in there to get the president and some recording out to help save the world. And again, Kurt Russell in this is incredible. He is one of those actors you don't seem to get a lot of props for the stuff he's done, and he made Snake such an iconic character. They did do a sequel. It's not very good, but he did do one, and I guarantee you will see men with beards and eye patches and certain types of combat pants strolling around cons dressed as him, because he's such an iconic look. And apparently was one of the inspirations for Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid, because Snake Plissken, Solid Snake, you know, there's lines there. Again, very good film, very of its time, and I believe, and again, I might be misremembering this, there's some matte paintings in there that were actually done by James Cameron in his early days as a production designer or whatever. Some of them pretty damn good. Again, very good film. Don't really need to see it. You know, don't need to tell you about it. It's a fairly simplistic, very driving. It starts, and once it starts, it goes. And it's a good film. It's a very good film. Again, recommend you watch it. So, right. So let's go to number 4. They Live. There's 2 reasons why I love this one. Rowdy Roddy Piper. I used to be a massive wrestling fan in the 80s and 90s, and it was kind of cool to see him in a movie. Also, a bloody good movie. Apparently, if my memory is serving me, Mr. Carpenter was a little unhappy with what we will refer to as Reaganomics, which is Ronald Reagan's policies of the time, because he believed that the poor were being punished and making the rich richer. So he wrote this as basically anger, because he said, because again, this isn't, I don't think I can spoil this, because if anyone of any genre will know certain things of this film. So what basically happens is a homeless guy who's named Nada, his name is never revealed, that is even what he's called in the credits, which is Nada means no one, comes into town, is homeless, gets work, and he sees a church being raided, and he goes in, and he finds these sunglasses, and he puts them on outside, and basically a hidden secret of the world is revealed to him. I am going to say this because I don't think it's fairly well known, and if you want a big spoiler warning across the screen, I might put one there. But he discovers that the world has been secretly invaded by aliens, and we are being fed subliminal messages to keep us passive. And a lot of people at the time have taken the kind of metaphor of the film is that elites, rich people, as we would now call them, billionaires, lose their humanity and become something else. But in this one, it is literal, actual aliens. Everybody knows a Bay. Everybody knows that was the Andrew the Giant. That's where he kind of got it from. But again, it is well worth it. Weirdly enough, it's not a very long film, and again, it goes at some pace, and has an incredibly famous scene between 2 men in an alley that lasts for what may seem like a ridiculous amount of time, but it is so iconic it's even been referenced in South Park. That's how good that sequence is. Again, saying nothing, watch that film. I guarantee you will not regret it. So we've done 7. Let us now get to the top 3. Ooh, exciting. So this one might be a little controversial because of the place it's at. Because I guarantee you most people will put this higher up. So it is, of course, Halloween. The film that effectively made him. The film that created Michael Myers, made Jamie Lee Curtis a Scream Queen. This is about as iconic as it gets. You cannot deny this movie. This is brilliant. The sequels are, you know. But again, how can you not? Some people will say, why is it not number 1? Because it's the film that made him. But to be honest with you, I saw this quite late on. I saw Assault on Precinct 13, The Fog, Escape from New York before I watched this. So it was like 83, 84. So it was many years. 78 this came out in. So I saw this quite late on. And you know, by that point, slasher films are fucking everywhere. So it's like a Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff. So I came to this after that, and it's still pretty brilliant. Let's not be honest here. It is an absolute icon of cinema. I mean, he's had two of his films obviously labelled as masterpieces, and everyone was like, the rest are pretty fucking good. But again, everyone knows Halloween. Big man, white mask, oh, actually famously William Shatner mask painted white. Overalls, knife, teenagers need I say any more. Pictures obviously around me. But again, if you're a horror fan and you haven't seen this, why are you here? But if you haven't seen it and you're curious, again, this has multiple variants. You can find it on collector's variants, Blu-ray, DVD. I think it is also on streaming. I'm not too certain. The Halloween in 4K one, if you find it, is not cheap. Let's put it that way. I looked at it on Amazon and nearly fell over. So that's why I got this copy, because I just need a Blu-ray. So, top two. Again, possibly a controversial choice. But number two is this. The Fog. Again, fairly early on. This was 1980, so this was the film he did after. This was the first film he did after Halloween. So the pressure was on, and this is. I'm going to tell a story. So me and a friend of mine I've still been friends with since we were like 14 watched this film together, and he shat himself. He, to this day, has an innate fear of fog. We actually now joke about it a bit more. He's obviously, you know, because dead pirates aren't going to come out of us fucking kill him. But this is effectively a campfire ghost story. For want of a better word, that is what this is. It's a story that you would tell around a campfire about a town that has a dark secret, and retribution comes in the form of this fog. Why I like this film is it isn't really that gory. There isn't a lot of blood in it. Even when I discussed this with Adrienne Barbeau about my mate being scared, she even said that. She said, "Why is he so scared of it? Because it isn't a very. It's a ghost story. It's not violent. There is violence upon it, but it's not really shown, if you know what I mean. It is there. There are some horrific noises in a certain scene. And again, Jamie Lee Curtis is in this, and a few other what I will call Carpenter regulars. And one of the interesting things about the film is Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and her mother is in it. Completely separate characters, not related, but they're there. Janet Leigh, yeah. So, again, I'm not going to say much. Obviously, I've said pirates come out the fog, but I'll leave it at that. It is a ghost story. Don't expect like Halloween guy with big knife going around killing teenagers. It's got a raw, creepy, I would say, a dread-like atmosphere, because that's actually where he met Rob Bottin, which will be leading us to the number one in a minute. So. Anyone who knows me might already be looking at this going, yeah, we know what this is going to be. We know what this is going to be, so just fucking hold it up. I've already done a video about this movie. I saw it in the cinema a while ago. And of course it is, yes, it is John Carpenter's The Thing. Again, there's a guy I know who hasn't seen it, and I sent him the link to watch it, because I was like, to see this movie, because he's going to the love of horror. So this film is 1982. This was his career peak. It was his first major studio movie. He had a pretty big budget, and he was remaking The Thing from Another World, which is a classic Howard Hawks movie, based on a story by J.W. Campbell Jr. Called Who Goes There. Basic story is an Antarctic scientific institute sees a helicopter shooting at a dog. The dog is allowed in, and the dog reveals itself as an imitator, something that can perfectly take you over and imitate you perfectly, which obviously that's a lot of discussions on set. But the effects in this movie are practical. There's no CGI in it, because obviously it's 82, this stuff wasn't around. But the shit that they do in this movie with practical effects, excuse me, is incredible. you will sit down and watch this 40-year-old film, actually nearly 42-year-old film now, and you will be like, what the fuck is this? You know, because it has massive body horror elements, and I'm going to come to actually a theory I have. There's all theories about why this film flopped, and I'm going to give you mine. So, first things first, everyone always runs out the line that this failed because E.T. was a hopeful movie and The Thing very much was not. And I'm like, I don't think that's accurate because it's two different audiences. Obviously, you would say a family movie, so it has a bigger audience. This, on the other hand, I believe it was, I can't remember what it was in America, but it was a high up rating. It was adults only. And this was in the 80s. So my theory is, why? So, my theory is this. Critic snobbery. Now, you might be thinking, what the hell do you mean? So, around the same time, David Cronenberg did a remake of The Fly. If you've seen it, you know it's very Cronenberg. It's body horror, it's gross effects, it's stuff like that. Now, my theory is this. Cronenberg had already been set up by critics as an artist, as an auteur, as a daring director. So that film was critically praised, commercially successful. Now, the funny thing is, back then, 80s, 82, whatever, people actually listened to movie critics. Astonishing as it sounds, I know. So critical reception of a film had an impact. Now, I think I still have some of the reviews. I may actually put them up here, but they tore this film to shreds, even though I class it as a better film than The Fly, because it's David's body horror done to an almost extreme level that I think Cronenberg would have been jealous of, to be honest with you. So the critics eviscerated it. It was referred to as, I think one review said something like he was a pornographer of violence. They didn't get the nihilistic ending. They didn't just get it. Because I think critics view John Carpenter as a genre director. Sci-fi and horror, as popular as they were, have always been looked upon by certain critics as lesser movies. Lesser art. Not as good as these bollocks we love. So that is why I think the film was eviscerated. Now, obviously, thanks to VHS tapes, this film, as they say, found its audience. But unfortunately for John Carpenter, that was too late. The critical reception essentially decimated his career. And I don't, as he's actually said, he's never fully recovered from how that film was received. Now, that is kind of ironic, because now, strangely enough, it is it is basically revered as an absolute stone cold masterpiece of science fiction and horror. Now, I've always said to people, I somehow wish it had received that reception in 82, because it would have been really interesting, because at that point he was going to make Firestarter, which was obviously he lost, and then that's when he was doing things like Christine and Starman, because he was working on, he was literally going back to low budget filmmaker at that point. So it's a bit of a sad thing to see, and I always wonder if that film had been commercial, if critics had actually just looked and understood what he was trying to do with it. His career might have been different. He might be like held up there with like the Spielbergs and the Lucases and stuff, as like, and I think in the genre of science fiction and horror, he is held in that same regard. He is one of the only directors you will find that he has a lot of fans, if you know what I mean. He's got kind of he's basically, they're up there. So essentially that is it. That is the 10 films. I am going to do a top 10 films of all time. That will be a little more difficult for me, because I don't think it's going to be 10. I'm going to have to do honourable mentions, because there's so many films I love. But I hope you enjoyed this. And obviously, if you like this, let me know. I have received 3 more subscribers, so you fuckers are getting me close to 100. I'm on 73, I think, now. So 26 to go, and I have to do this shit red in 3 weeks. So I'm watching you. But thanks very much for watching, and hopefully, I will see you soon. And have a lovely day, and goodbye!